All right. Now, paperwork. We keep saying paperwork, paperwork, paperwork. We need paperwork to be done well and done right every time, anytime, all the time. There is no time in which we don't want the paperwork done right. Uh, we all gonna make mistakes, but we absolutely want our paperwork done correct and submitted on time. So we're gonna go over this right here for a driver. This is what you want to know. You want to be able to communicate this. You want to be able to learn this, so that you can tell your driver that you'll be able to kind of guide your driver sometimes and make sure that he understands how to do it. Make sure that you understand what he's talking about when he's talking about paperwork. So have a good, get a very good idea, very good grip on this paperwork and on their duties. So XJ driver paperwork completion and submission service training memo. XJ driver's weekly log. This is what we call a weekly log or a manifest or a summary sheet. Says here that your information must be filled out completely with all daily moves. So what you see here is this driver Carlos Aguiar. His truck number is 22120. You have the dates. He has July 25th. All the loads that he did on July 25th. All the loads he did on the 26th, 27th, and 28th. Here are his pro numbers for the 25th. The container numbers he touched. The chassis that were on these, under these containers. We'll talk a little bit more about these. The size of these containers are 20, as well as the chassis. And this is what he did with this pro container and chassis. Took it from New Decade, picked up from and delivered to. To and from, to and from, to and from, or from and to. So from NDS, or I'm going to say the New Decade warehouse, to Channelview, South Atlantic's service. New Decade, South Atlantic to Barber's Cut to South Atlantic to Barber's Cut to New Decade. This is what he did with these containers on the 25th. On the 26th. You get the idea. It's a summary sheet. Again, the information must be filled out completely with all daily moves. Every day. They're completing this. At the end of the week, they'll take a picture of this, put it in their group me for accounting, and keep a copy for themselves. But that's a copy that's right there. They'll never lose it. They can turn it in. They can turn the original copy in now. They have a digital copy, and so do we. Moving on. XJ's driver paperwork process. This is the paperwork process depending on the scenario. And we'll go through all of these right now. So, the XJ paperwork process for pulling a container out of the port and dropping it on our yard. Okay? Pulling a container out of the port, dropping it on our yard. You will receive an EIR, which means Equipment Interchange Receipt, aka interchange ticket, port ticket. Best to say EIR. EIR. This is an EIR, Equipment Interchange Receipt. This is a receipt for the container that they picked up at the port facility. Has your container number, your chassis number. These are your main things you want to look at right here: container, chassis number, receipt number, ticket number. Has his license plate right here. And of course, a date and time. It also has a steamship line right there. Steamship line is ZIM. The SCAC code is NDSV. Will always be the same. We are NDSV. It's identifier code for the ports. So again, in order to pull out a container out of the port, drop it on our yard, we're going to need this interchange receipt, upload it to your e-rigs, and we need you to fill out a POD, proof of delivery, for this container. To get from, the way these things are set up is a little weird. The from from Bayport to New Decade. We need a place, city and state, place, city and state, perfect. We need the XJA Pro number, perfect. The date, the container number, chassis number. TNPZ 492399 is the chassis number. ZCSU, container number. Containers have 7 numbers, preceded by 4 letters. Chassis only have 6, by the way. Driver's name, truck number, and date. Everything's there. This is a completely filled out, properly filled out proof of delivery. You have your interchange, you have your POD, and that's all you need. That's all the driver needs for pulling out a container from the port and dropping it on our yard. Alright, going to the next. So, you have an e-rigs, or a driver will have an e-rigs, and you'll also have access to their e-rigs so you can see what they see on their end. This is just a preview of one of what they see in their e-rigs when they're submitting their paperwork. Very easy to do it wrong, even easier to do it right. It will take its own screenshots. Well, it'll take its own camera capture. They hover their camera over the document while they're in the Pro in their e-rigs app on their phone or on our tablets that we provide them. And it captures it. And this is a good image. This is a bad image. We'll be having them redo that. If we see that, tell them redo it. And we can see it. You can look into it. These are some early day and end of day reminders that April, who's the current accounting manager, will send out. It says, finally, you will staple these 2 docs together and drop them in the appropriate box at the terminal. So, back up a little bit. You drop a container on the yard from the port. You have an interchange. You have a POD. You will properly scan the EIR and POD individually into the Pro and your e-rigs app individually, one at a time. And then you will staple these 2 documents together and drop them in the appropriate box at the terminal. And you will know what that appropriate box is because we will tell you. We will tell you during orientation, and we will tell you daily right here as a driver. So, and anytime we do it wrong, we will tell you again as a driver. And then we may also set you up with a D&E to do a development if you're having any issues with paperwork or not knowing how to do it or not doing it. All right, moving on. The next type of move is live unloading or loading or dropping a container at a customer's warehouse. The good drop, the drop that we tell you to do, the proper drop. All right, as a driver, boom. You will fill out a company POD, proof of delivery, for the container and have warehouse sign it. If you are being live unloaded, the warehouse will also, if you are being live loaded, did I say unloaded? I'm not sure. If you are being live loaded, the warehouse will also provide you with a BOL for the cargo they have loaded with you or to you. So they've given you the warehouse. You've taken an empty container to a port, or from a port to a warehouse, right? And they've live loaded you. They've taken their forklifts, picked up freight out of the warehouse, and drove it into your container, dropped it, and filled it all the way up. When they've done that, they're going to say, sign for this freight that we just gave you. You have been live loaded. We're going to sign your POD that you filled out, but we're going to have you fill out. We're going to fill one out, and we're going to write one ourselves. So you will have. So when you're getting live loaded or unloaded, in this case, live loaded, you will write a POD, and when you are done, let me let you see what's on this POD. Driver has all the right information: pro number, date, to, from, or from, to. Again, that's backwards. So from, to. Container number, chassis number. He has a seal of the booking number because he was live loaded. This was an empty, and he got live loaded. His time in was at 9 a.m. Can you see that? Time in at 9 a.m. Time out 11:55 a.m. The warehouse finished loading them, and they gave them their proof of delivery that they dropped off this freight into this container before you left. They're going to make you sign for it as well, and they're going to give you a copy. As a driver, you have to receive this and upload it the same way as before. Properly scan the EIR, or in this case the PODs, individually to the Pro, and then staple them together when everything's done before you turn them in. These two go together. Alright, so again, this is for a live load. This container was pulled empty from the port, taken to a warehouse, filled up with some cargo, from cookies to machinery, whatever it was. And then the warehouse, after loading that empty container with their cookies or machinery, had the driver sign their POD and gave the driver a copy. And the driver then uploaded this paperwork to their Pro using the camera capture method right here. Easy peasy. Alright, next. So, this is the XJA paperwork process for returning a container to a port facility. Returning a container. Let's see here. You will receive an EIR, an interchange ticket, or equipment interchange receipt for the container returning to the port facility. Here are 3 different examples of EIR tickets depending on the facility. So you have different type of EIRs. Normally you're going to see this kind of EIR. It's going to say interchange equipment or EIR at the top. You know, again, equipment number or the ticket number. The steamship line is here, our SCAT code, container number, chassis number, all the information. But this is an EIR ticket for the port. This is the port of Barbers Cut, BCT. That's how you know what port this interchange receipt is from, Barbers Cut. This is an interchange for West Gulf Container. You can barely see that, but this says West Gulf Container. This is a depot, an empty depot. So when the port is full of empties or doesn't take those kind of empties for whatever reason, empty containers, it may go to somewhere else outside of the port. It may come here to a depot called West Gulf Container, and they'll accept it and give them an interchange ticket, interchange in. We'll go over that some more. Series Intermodal. This is another one. This is a new place, so they aren't as sophisticated, but this is no doubt still an interchange receipt, although you will hardly ever see an interchange receipt that looks anything like this. This is a new place. Their systems aren't as up to date, but they are part of the SCAT code system, so they can interchange equipment. Alright, so these are 3 different examples of EIR tickets depending on the facility. Port, depot, other depot, old or new. So next, you will properly and individually scan the POD, the warehouse BOL, if applicable, and EIR into the e-rigs into the Pro in your e-rigs app, followed by stapling these docs together and dropping them in the appropriate box at the terminal daily. You will rinse and repeat this process for each container we pull from the port and deliver to a warehouse and return to the port. Again, it's just an overview. We'll get more into this. As with everything else, if you are not 100% sure what paperwork is needed and where it goes, please, please, please only ask before you do. Alright? So, real quick, paperwork. This is what it looks like. You have a weekly log, writing down all your different moves that you did for the day. Must be filled in completely with all paid moves. When you're pulling a container out of the port and dropping it on our yard, you will receive an EIR ticket. You will write up a POD, staple those two together, turn them in after you have uploaded the document to your Pro and e-rigs. If you're live unloading or loading or dropping at a container at a warehouse, you will fill out a POD for that container with all the information: to and from location, Pro, name, your name, time in and out, chassis, customer signature right here. Got live loaded with cargo into your empty container for an export. Warehouse will give you their BOL as well for the cargo they loaded you with. When you turn that container into the port, empty or loaded, they're going to give you an interchange receipt saying that you brought this container back to the port. And you will staple all of that together for each container after loading it into your Pro and e-rigs properly. Each document into the Pro. All that paperwork for one Pro for one container has to be turned in, uploaded to your Pro, stapled together, turned into the terminal, the originals, and the basket that is provided